If you're sitting in your living room right now, looking at a shiny new EV in your browser and thinking, I'm gonna save so much money on gas, I need you to put the laptop down for 5 minutes. Because as we sit here in 2026, the math of owning an electric vehicle in the United States has changed. It is no longer a no-brainer. In fact, depending on exactly where you live, down to your specific zip code, that EV could be the worst financial decision you ever make. For years, the mainstream media and the big car companies have pushed the same narrative. EVs are the ultimate money savers. They tell you that you'll spend pennies to charge at home, you'll never see a gas station again, and the government is going to rain tax credits down on your head. But here's the exposed truth for 2026. The EV transition in America is happening unevenly. Some states are rolling out the red carpet, while others are quietly making EV ownership a financial nightmare. Most people think they know which states are the worst. If you ask the average guy at the gym, he'll say, oh, Texas or North Dakota. They love oil. They must hate EVs. And if you ask where the best place is, they'll point to California or New York, the places with compost bins larger than your fridge. But we ran the actual numbers for all 50 states plus DC, and the results are nothing like the stereotypes. Some of the states shouting the loudest about going green are the ones hitting your wallet the hardest. And some of the oil country states are actually low-key fantastic for your bank account. To find the financial nightmares of 2026, we looked at the 3 pillars of EV ownership. These are the 3 things that will either make you feel like a genius or make you regret your purchase every single month. I'm Nick, and today on Nick's Car Review, we are counting down the top 10 states where owning an EV is a financial nightmare in 2026. If you live in one of these states, you need to grab a calculator before you grab a charging cable. Let's get into the bottom of the list. Coming in at number 10 is the Lone Star State. Now, don't get me wrong, Texas is actually a great place to drive an EV in terms of electricity costs. It's cheap, the grid is getting more resilient, and there's plenty of space. But Texas has exposed a massive financial trap for EV owners in 2026, the registration hammer. Texas politicians realize that every time someone swaps a Ford F-150 for a Lightning, the state loses out on gas tax revenue used to fix the roads. Their solution? They didn't just match the gas tax, they surpassed it. In 2026, if you own an EV in Texas, you are hit with a $400 initial registration fee and a $200 annual renewal fee on top of all your regular costs. Here is the math nightmare. For the average driver doing 10,000 miles a year, that $200 annual fee is actually more than what you would have paid in gas taxes for a fuel-efficient hybrid. You are essentially being penalized for trying to be efficient. If you're a truck folk type who puts 30,000 miles a year on your vehicle, you'll still come out ahead on fuel savings. But if you're a city commuter in Austin or Dallas just doing 8,000 miles a year, that DMV fee is eating up 30% of your total savings before you even plug in. At number 9, we have Mississippi. This state is a financial nightmare for a completely different reason. It isn't just about the fees, it's about the infrastructure void. While the rest of the country is moving toward the NACS standard and building out the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Corridors, Mississippi is essentially a charging desert in 2026. If you own an EV in Mississippi, you must be able to charge at home. There is no other option. If you are a renter or live in an apartment complex that hasn't upgraded its wiring, owning an EV here is a total liability. Because there are so few public DC fast chargers, the few that do exist are often broken or have massive wait times. The financial nightmare here shows up in your resale value. Because the local demand for used EVs is so low due to the lack of chargers, your car is worth significantly less in Mississippi than it would be in Georgia or Florida. If you try to trade in your Tesla or your Ioniq 5, you're gonna get slaughtered on the trade-in value because the dealer knows it's going to sit on the lot for 6 months. You are literally trapped by your zip code. Coming in at number 8 is Alabama, and it's basically a double whammy of everything we just talked about. Alabama has some of the highest EV registration fees in the nation, sitting at $203 per year. And they've earmarked a portion of that money for EV infrastructure that hasn't actually materialized for the average driver yet. But the real exposed truth about Alabama in 2026 is the insurance premium. Because there are so few specialized EV repair shops in the state, insurance companies have jacked up the rates for electric cars. If you get into a fender bender in a Rivian or a Lucid in rural Alabama, that car might have to be flatbedded 200 miles to the nearest certified repair center. The insurance companies know this, and they are passing that cost directly to you. When you add a $203 registration fee to an insurance premium that is 25% higher than a gas car, the fuel savings start to look like a rounding error. This is the reality of 2026. In these states, the government and the service industry are treating your EV like a luxury toy rather than a practical tool. You're paying luxury taxes at the DMV and luxury premiums at the insurance office. For a lot of people, that's a deal breaker. We are moving into the top half of the list, and this is where the exposed truth starts to get really uncomfortable. We're moving away from the states that just don't have chargers and into the states that love to talk about being green, but their utility companies and insurance adjusters have a different plan for your bank account. Coming in at number 7 is Georgia. Now, if you go back about a decade, Georgia was the EV capital of the South because they had a massive $5,000 tax credit. People were leasing Nissan Leafs for basically nothing. But in 2026, Georgia is suffering from a massive incentive hangover. The state didn't just let that credit expire. They replaced it with one of the most aggressive EV alternative fuel fees in the country. If you own a non-commercial EV in Georgia today, you are looking at an annual registration fee of over $214. But here is the exposed financial drain for Georgians: the insurance surge. Atlanta is one of the most expensive cities in America for car insurance. And when you add an EV into that mix, the numbers get dumb. Because EVs are heavier and packed with expensive sensors, a minor collision in Spaghetti Junction traffic can lead to a total loss. Insurance companies in Georgia are hitting EV owners with premiums that are often 30% higher than a comparable gas SUV. When you add that $214 DMV smackdown to an extra $600 a year in insurance, your gas savings have already left the building before you even put the car in drive. I know. You're looking at the screen and saying, "Nick, how is California the land of the Tesla on a financial nightmare list?" But here's the reality in 2026. California is the perfect example of a state that is green for the rich, but a trap for the rest. California has the highest number of chargers, sure, but it also has some of the most nightmarish electricity prices in the United States. If you are a customer of PG&E or Southern California Edison, you aren't paying pennies to charge. In 2026, Tier 1 electricity rates in parts of California have spiked to over 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Let's do the math that the tech bros in Silicon Valley don't want you to do. If you're paying 45 cents a kilowatt hour to charge your Mustang Mach-E or your Model Y at home, you are actually paying more per mile than if you were driving a 40 mpg hybrid. You are literally paying a premium to be green. And that's before we talk about the registration fees. California's road improvement fee is based on the value of the vehicle. Meaning, if you bought a $60,000 Rivian R1S, your annual registration can easily top $700. You are paying more for your tags than some people in other states pay for their entire car note. California is a financial nightmare because the cost of living and the cost of power have officially outpaced the savings of the battery. At number 5, we head to the Northeast. Massachusetts is a state that is pushing hard for EV adoption, but they are hitting a massive wall: the winter utility crisis. The exposed truth about New England is that electricity prices are tied heavily to natural gas imports. In 2026, when the temperature drops in Boston, your electricity rate can jump by 50% overnight. If you are charging an EV in a Massachusetts winter, you are dealing with a double loss. First, your battery efficiency drops by 30% because of the cold, meaning you need more power to go the same distance. Second, that power is now at its most expensive point of the year. The transcript for the 2026 market shows that Massachusetts residents are paying some of the highest delivery fees in the country. It doesn't matter if you shop for a supplier, the delivery fee is where the utility companies get you. And just like Alabama, The lack of specialized EV repair shops in the Bay State means that if your battery heater fails or your heat pump dies in a blizzard, you are looking at a repair bill that will make your eyes water. Massachusetts is a state where you have to be a math genius to make an EV work. If you don't have solar panels on your roof to offset those winter rates, you are essentially at the mercy of the grid and the weather. For many families, that uncertainty is a financial nightmare they just don't need. We have reached the final boss level of the 2026 EV landscape. If you live in these 4 states, you aren't just dealing with a high electric bill or a stiff registration fee, you are navigating a perfect storm of financial headwinds. These are the states where the composite score, the one that blends home charging costs, infrastructure gaps, and DMV penalties, starts to look like a warning label. Coming in at number 4 is Alaska, with a composite score of 45 out of 100. Alaska is arguably the most beautiful place in America to drive, but for an EV owner, it is a constant exercise in planning and prayer. The exposed reality of the last frontier is the cold weather drain. When the temperature drops to 10 degrees below zero, which is just a Tuesday in Fairbanks, your EV range can plummet by 30% or more. That is exactly when you need a robust charging network, but Alaska has the opposite. With only 71 stations across the entire state, you are more likely to see a grizzly bear than a functioning DC fast charger once you leave the main hubs. Between the high cost of electricity at nearly 28 cents per kilowatt hour and the seasonal efficiency loss, your fuel savings are literally vanishing into the frozen air. At number 3, we have Rhode Island, scoring a 40.6 out of 100. Rhode Island is the smallest state in the Union, which you would think makes range anxiety a thing of the past. But what it lacks in distance, it makes up for in pure expense. Rhode Island is the hidden trap of the Northeast Power Corridor. It suffers from some of the highest residential electricity rates in the country, averaging over 29 cents per kilowatt hour. Because the state is so small, it doesn't qualify for the same infrastructure grants as the massive western states, meaning the public charging network is thinner than you'd expect for such a dense area. You are paying a premium package price for a very basic experience. It is the financial equivalent of buying snacks at the airport. You're paying double because you have no other choice. Number 2 is the Garden State. New Jersey scores a 39.4 out of 100. And the reason is pure Jersey. It's not personal, it's just business. New Jersey used to be an EV paradise with great incentives and cheap power. But in 2026, the party is over. Electricity rates have spiked to nearly 25 cents per kilowatt hour. But the real smackdown happens at the DMV. New Jersey now hits EV owners with a staggering $270 registration fee. They don't ask nicely either. They just expect you to slide the cash over for the privilege of driving on their roads. When you combine high utility rates with a registration fee that feels like a toll booth you can never escape, New Jersey becomes one of the most expensive places in America to go green. We have arrived at the number 1 worst state for EV ownership in 2026, Hawaii. With a composite score of only 24.7 out of 100, Hawaii is in a league of its own when it comes to financial pain. The exposed truth about paradise is that Hawaii has to ship in almost everything, including its energy. Up to 75% of the state's electricity still comes from burning petroleum. That means your kilowatt hours aren't just power, they are liquid gold, priced at a jaw-dropping 42.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Charging an EV in Hawaii is basically a financial love letter to your utility company. It can cost as much as your monthly budget for shave ice. But here's the wild twist I promised you. Even at 42 cents per kilowatt hours, an EV still wins in Hawaii. Because gas prices are also astronomical on the islands, charging an electric F150 costs about $55, while filling the gas version costs $115. Hawaii is a financial nightmare, yes, but it's a nightmare across the board for everything from groceries to gas. An EV simply cuts that specific pain in half. So, what is the takeaway after looking at all 50 states and running the math? The EV transition is happening, but it is happening unevenly. If you live in a saving zone like Arizona, Nevada, or DC, you should buy an EV yesterday, You'll save money from day one. But if you are in one of these bottom 10 states, you have to be a smarter shopper. In Texas, you need to put real miles on the car to outrun that $400 registration fee. In Massachusetts, you have to compare suppliers or go solar to beat those 30-cent utility rates. In Mississippi, you better have a home charger because the public network is a scavenger hunt you don't want to play. Don't rely on a salesman's pitch or the green hype you see on the news. Run the math for your specific zip code. I've put the full 2026 spreadsheet in the link below so you can find your state and see if the numbers actually work for you. I want to hear from my final boss drivers, the Texans dealing with the fees and the New Englanders dealing with the winter rates. Is your EV still worth it, or are you looking at the gas pump with a little bit of nostalgia? Let me know in the comments. I'm Nick, this is Nick's Car Review, and I'll see you in the next one.